I'd been coming to this cabin since I was 7 years old. My father built it in 1965. Every board, every beam, every window frame. He taught me to swim off that dock. Taught me to fish in the early mornings when the lake was still as glass. When he died 5 years ago, he left it to me. Not my brother. Not to be sold and split. To me. Because I'd promised I'd keep it in the family. Thanksgiving 2024, I got there early. 3 hours from my home in the suburbs, winding up through the mountains as the aspen trees thinned and the evergreens thickened. I unlocked the door and breathed in that familiar smell, pine wood and old quilts and 59 years of memories. The guest book was still on the mantel where it had always been, leather-bound, pages yellowed. I ran my fingers across it, signatures going back decades, my children's names in crayon from when they were small. I started cooking around noon, turkey in the oven, green bean casserole, mashed potatoes, my mother's stuffing recipe. The kitchen windows fogged up from the heat. I set the long oak table, my grandfather had made it by hand, with the good china. 14 place settings. My daughter Jessica, her 2 girls, my son Brian, his wife Sarah, their 2 boys, and me. They arrived around 3. Jessica first, her SUV kicking up gravel in the driveway. Maya and Sophia spilled out, 16 and 12, already glued to their phones. Then Brian, an hour later, with Sarah and the boys. Jake and Ethan ran straight for the lake, even though it was too cold to swim. Dinner was fine, normal. The kids complained about the Wi-Fi. Brian talked about a property he was trying to sell. Jessica scrolled through her phone between bites. I asked about school, about work, about their lives. Got short answers, but that was normal too. Families drift. I told myself that was just how it was now. I was standing at the head of the table, serving dessert, apple pie, still warm, when Jessica said it. "You know, Mom, you're really lucky we still let you stay here for the holidays." My hands froze. The pie server halfway to her plate. I looked at her. "What?" She laughed. Light. Casual. Like she'd just commented on the weather. "I mean, it's not like you use this place anymore. You're up here, what, twice a year? We're here all summer with the kids." Brian nodded. He was cutting into his pie, not looking at me. "She's right, Mom. We've been talking. You're getting older. This place is a lot to maintain. The drive up here, it's not safe for you anymore." I set the pie server down. Carefully. My daughter, 45 years old, was telling me I was lucky to stay in my own cabin, the cabin my father built, the cabin I inherited, the cabin that had my name, and only my name, on the deed. "This is my property," I said. Quiet. Even. Jessica waved her hand. Dismissive. "Technically, sure. But Mom, be realistic. At your age, you should be simplifying. We've actually been talking to someone about what options might make sense for you. Assisted living communities in Denver. Really nice places. You'd have people around. Activities." The room had gone silent. Sarah was staring at her plate. The grandkids had their headphones in. Brian was still not looking at me. "I'm 68, I said. "I'm not." "And that's exactly our point," Jessica interrupted. She reached across and patted my hand, patronizing. "We love you. We're just thinking about what's best. This cabin's worth a lot of money, you know. It could fund a really comfortable retirement for you." I pulled my hand back. That night, after everyone had gone to bed, Jessica and the girls in the loft, Brian's family in the downstairs bedroom, I sat alone in the kitchen. The same kitchen where my mother had taught me to make pie crust, where I'd taught Jessica and Brian to crack eggs without getting shell in the bowl. I could hear them through the heating vents, voices carrying from the loft. Jessica's voice, low but clear. I talked to that attorney. She said if we can document any signs of cognitive decline, we can pursue power of attorney. It's for her own good. Brian. Quieter. What if she fights it? She won't last long in assisted living. She's used to independence. Give it 6 months, a year, tops. Then the cabin's ours. Split it 2 ways. We're both looking at over $400,000 each. Your foreclosure problem? Gone. Silence. Then Sarah's voice, barely audible. This doesn't feel right. It's practical, Jessica said. She's going to lose it eventually anyway. Memory issues, falls. It's just a matter of time. This way we can actually help her, get her somewhere safe, and solve our financial problems. Win-win. I sat there in the dark, the cabin settling around me with its familiar creaks and sighs, my father's handiwork, my inheritance, my home, and my own children, the children I'd raised, sacrificed for, loved, were planning to take it from me. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in the bedroom I'd slept in as a child, staring at the pine ceiling my father had installed, board by board, listening to my children breathe in the other rooms. In the morning, I made coffee, set out cereal for the grandkids, said goodbye as they packed up their cars. Jessica hugged me. Brian kissed my cheek. They drove away down the mountain road, and I stood on the porch watching until I couldn't see their taillights anymore. Then I locked up the cabin and drove home. My house is in a quiet suburb outside Denver, split level, built in the 80s. My husband Tom and I bought it when I was pregnant with Jessica, raised both kids there. Tom died 5 years ago. Heart attack, sudden, he was only 70. The house felt too big after that, but it was paid off, it was mine, and I'd learned to live alone. My next-door neighbor, Margaret, was watering her roses when I pulled into the driveway the day after Thanksgiving. She's 72, Chinese-American, a retired engineer, been widowed longer than me. We've lived next to each other for 8 years. She notices things. "How was the cabin?" she called over the fence. I got out of the car, pulled my overnight bag from the trunk. "Fine," I said. She turned off the hose, looked at me for a long moment. "You don't look fine." I wanted to tell her, wanted to say it out loud, but I'm not good at conflict. Never have been. My whole life I've smoothed things over, kept the peace. When Tom and I argued, I'd be the one to apologize first. When the kids fought, I'd mediate. I taught elementary school for 35 years, 3rd grade, and my classroom management strategy was kindness and patience. Redirect, don't confront. That's how I was raised. That's who I am. "Just tired," I said. Margaret didn't push. She just nodded. "I made too much tuna casserole yesterday. I'll bring some over." She showed up an hour later with the casserole in a glass dish, covered with foil, knocked on my door. I let her in and we sat at my kitchen table, the same table where I'd done bills and graded papers and helped Jessica with algebra and taught Brian to write his name. "You're upset," Margaret said. Not a question. I looked down at my coffee. "My kids, they said some things." "What kind of things?" I told her. Not all of it. Not the overheard conversation, just the dinner comment, the lucky to stay remark. Margaret's expression hardened. "That's your cabin," she said. "I know." "Your name on the deed." "I know." She was quiet for a moment. Then, "My sister went through something like this 10 years ago. Her son convinced her to add him to her bank account. Just for emergencies," he said. "Drained it in 6 months. Gambling problem. By the time she realized, he'd taken over $70,000. I looked up. What did she do? Hired a lawyer, cut him off. It broke her heart, but she got most of the money back. Margaret reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "I'm just saying, if you need help, I'm here. And if things get worse, there are people who can help you." After she left, I sat there with the casserole cooling on the counter. I thought about my children, about everything I'd given them. When Jessica's marriage fell apart in 2018, the divorce was brutal. Legal fees, custody battles, financial discovery. She called me crying one night, said her lawyer needed a retainer she couldn't afford. $85,000. I liquidated part of my retirement account. Helped her. She promised she'd pay me back. She never did. Brian bought his house in 2015. He'd saved some money, but not enough for a down payment in Denver's market. I gave him $45,000, called it an early inheritance. He cried, said he'd never forget it. Over the years, I'd contributed to the grandkids' college funds, $30,000 total, spread across 4 kids. I'd paid for summer camps, for braces. For that year, Maya wanted to try horseback riding, and the lessons were $200 a month, and the cabin. For the past 10 years, Jessica and Brian had treated it like their own vacation home. Summers, holidays, long weekends. They'd invite friends, throw parties. I'd offered to charge them rent. Market rate for a cabin like that was $3,000 a week, easy, but I never did. Call it $36,000 a year, 10 years, $360,000 in free use. Add it up, and I'd given my children over $500,000 in 20 years. And now they were scheming to take the one thing I'd promised my father I'd keep. I'd ignored the warning signs. Last Christmas at the cabin, Jessica had asked me about the deed. "Have you ever thought about updating it, Mom? You know, putting our names on it, too, for estate planning purposes." I'd deflected. Changed the subject. Told myself she was just being practical. I should have known better. That week, I tried to keep busy. I graded some tutoring work I do on the side. I went to book club on Thursday. We were reading a mystery, but I couldn't focus on the discussion. I tended my roses, deadheaded the spent blooms, worked the soil with my hands. It usually calms me. This time, it didn't. Margaret checked on me every day, texted in the mornings. "Coffee at 8?" Sometimes I said yes. Sometimes I made excuses. She never pushed. Just let me know she was there. I kept thinking about what Jessica had said, about assisted living, about me being too old to manage the cabin. I'm 68 years old. I drive just fine. I manage my own finances. I have a pension from teaching, Social Security, savings, investments. I'm not wealthy, but I'm comfortable, secure, independent. But Jessica had always been intense, driven. Even as a child, she knew what she wanted and found ways to get it. She'd been Daddy's girl. Tom doted on her, gave her everything. When he died, she'd taken it hard. Harder than Brian. I'd tried to be there for her. Maybe I'd been too understanding, too willing to help. Brian had always been gentler, a people pleaser. He'd followed Jessica's lead his whole life. When she decided they were going to borrow my good china for her dinner party, Brian helped her pack it up. When she suggested they should use the cabin whenever they wanted, Brian agreed. He'd always been like that, easy to influence. But Sarah, Brian's wife, she was different. We'd always gotten along. She's a teacher, too. Elementary school, just like I was. We'd talk about lesson plans, about difficult parents, about the kids who needed extra help. She'd seemed uncomfortable at Thanksgiving. Quiet. I wondered if she knew what Jessica and Brian were planning. I wondered if she agreed with it. That night, alone in my house, I went to my filing cabinet, pulled out the folder marked Property Documents, found the cabin deed. My father's signature from 1965, transferring ownership to himself and my mother's death certificate from 2003, the updated deed from 2019 after my father died. One name on it now, Dorothy Marie Thompson, sole owner, not Jessica, not Brian, just me. I sat at the kitchen table, holding that deed. 43 years I'd been a mother, and I'd never thought I'd need to prove my own children wrong. I went back to my routine. That's what you do, isn't it? When something's wrong, but you don't know what to do about it, you keep moving. Monday morning, I tutored 2 third graders in reading. Tuesday, I volunteered at the library. Wednesday, I had lunch with an old colleague from my teaching days. The whole time, I felt this low hum of anxiety in my chest, like waiting for the other shoe to drop. Thursday afternoon, Jessica called. "Mom, can you watch the girls Saturday just for a few hours? I have a work thing." I hesitated, then said yes, because that's what I do. I say yes. Saturday, I drove to Jessica's house. It's in a nice neighborhood, upper middle class, good schools, the kind of place where people have landscaping services and HOA meetings. Jessica and her ex-husband bought it before the divorce. She'd kept it in the settlement, but I knew the mortgage was steep. Maya and Sophia were waiting on the porch with their backpacks, 16 and 12. Maya gave me a quick hug. Sophia was already looking at her phone. "Thanks, Mom," Jessica said. She was rushing, grabbing her purse, checking her reflection in the hall mirror. "There's pizza money on the counter. I'll be back by 6. She was gone before I could answer. The girls settled in the living room, homework spread across the coffee table. I offered to help. Maya said she was fine. Sophia put in her earbuds. I sat in the kitchen, feeling awkward in my daughter's house, like a guest, like someone who needed permission to be there. Jessica's iPad was on the kitchen counter, plugged in, screen still lit. I wasn't snooping, not intentionally, but the screen was right there, and I saw my name, an email, from Jessica to Brian. Subject line, mom situation, timeline. My hands went cold. I looked toward the living room. The girls were absorbed in their phones. I picked up the iPad, read. Brian. Talked to the attorney today. She confirmed we can pursue guardianship if we document cognitive decline. Start keeping notes. Anytime mom forgets something, seems confused, makes a mistake, we need a pattern established. Timeline. I'm thinking spring. Get her into an evaluation in March. File paperwork by April. If we move fast, cabin could be liquidated by summer. You'd have the cash for your foreclosure problem by July. Let me know when you can talk. Don't do this over text. Call me. Jay, I read it 3 times. My daughter, plotting, timeline, attorney, guardianship. The cabin could be liquidated by summer. I heard Sophia's voice from the living room. Grandma, can we order pizza now? I set the iPad down, hands shaking. Sure, sweetie, let me get my purse. I ordered the pizza, sat with the girls while they ate, helped Maya with her algebra homework. She was stuck on quadratic equations, and I walked her through it the same way I'd taught hundreds of 3rd graders to add fractions. Break it into smaller steps, one at a time. When Jessica came home at 6:15, I hugged the girls goodbye, told Jessica it was no problem, happy to help any time. I drove home in a fog. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about that email. Cognitive decline, evaluation, liquidated. Clinical words for stealing my life. Sunday morning, I called Jessica. Hi, Mom. Cheerful, normal. I wanted to talk to you about Thanksgiving, I said, about that comment, the lucky to stay thing. Silence. Then, Mom, I was joking. It didn't sound like a joke. Well, it was. Her voice shifted, sharper. You're being sensitive. And the conversation afterward? About assisted living? We're concerned about you, Mom. You live alone. You're almost 70. We just want you to be safe. I'm 68, and I'm fine. Are you? Now she sounded gentle, concerned, like she was talking to a child. Because you've seemed a little off lately, forgetting things, getting confused. I'm not confused, Jessica. See? You're getting defensive. That's exactly what we're worried about. Mom, have you thought about seeing someone? Just for a checkup. Make sure everything's okay? My throat tightened. She was doing it. Right now. Gaslighting me, making me question myself. I'm fine, I said again. Okay, I just care about you. We all do. She paused. Look, why don't we have lunch next week? Just the 2 of us. We can talk about this calmly. I wanted to scream, wanted to confront her, wanted to say I'd seen the email, knew what she was planning, but I didn't. Because I'm not good at conflict. Because she's my daughter. Because part of me, God help me, still wanted to believe this was all a misunderstanding. Sure, I said. Lunch sounds nice. After I hung up, I sat at my kitchen table, the same table where I'd found the cabin deed, where Margaret had brought me casserole, where I'd eaten breakfast alone for 5 years. I pulled out my laptop, Googled elder financial abuse. The results made my stomach turn. Story after story. Adult children stealing from parents, forging documents, manipulating, isolating, controlling. The National Center on Elder Abuse estimated that 1 in 10 Americans over 60 experience some form of abuse. Financial exploitation was the most common. I found my phone, scrolled to Margaret's number, hesitated, then put the phone down. Margaret had told me about her sister, about the son who'd drained her bank account, about the lawyer she'd hired. I thought about that, about actually hiring a lawyer, about accusing my own children of, what? Planning to commit fraud? It sounded insane, but the email wasn't insane. It was real. Monday, I made an appointment with my doctor, Dr. Morrison. I'd been seeing her for 12 years. I told the receptionist I wanted a full checkup, cognitive screening, documentation that I was healthy and competent. The receptionist asked if everything was okay. I said it was just preventive care. The appointment was scheduled for the following week. Tuesday, Margaret knocked on my door. I'd been avoiding her texts, making excuses. She stood on my porch with a concerned look I recognized, the same look she'd given me the week after Tom died when I'd tried to tell her I was fine. "You're not fine," she said. Not a question. I let her in. We sat at the kitchen table. I told her everything. The Thanksgiving comment, the overheard conversation, the email I'd seen on Jessica's iPad, the phone call. Margaret listened without interrupting. When I finished, she reached across and took my hand. "My sister waited too long," she said. By the time she realized what was happening, he'd already taken most of her savings. "Dorothy, you need to protect yourself, now, before they do anything else. They're my children." "I know." Her voice was gentle but firm. "And I know this is hard. But what they're planning, it's not just wrong, it's illegal. Elder financial abuse. If they file for guardianship based on false claims of incompetence and then take control of your assets, Dorothy, you could lose everything." I felt tears building, fought them back. "I don't know what to do." "You start documenting. Every conversation, every text, every email you can access. You see your doctor, get that cognitive screening. You talk to a lawyer who specializes in elder law. I have a friend, Robert Klein. He helped my sister. I can give you his number." I looked down at our hands. Margaret's grip was steady. Mine was trembling. "I keep thinking maybe I'm overreacting," I said. "Maybe they're just worried about me. Maybe—" "Dorothy," she squeezed my hand. "You read the email, timeline, spring, liquidate the cabin by summer. That's not worry. That's a plan." She was right. I knew she was right. "Okay," I said, quiet. "Okay, I'll call the lawyer." Margaret stayed for another hour. We drank tea. She told me more about her sister's case, how the lawyer had helped document everything, how they'd proven the son had no legal right to the money he'd taken, how they'd gotten most of it back. It had taken a year. It had been painful. But her sister had her independence back, her security, her dignity. After Margaret left, I sat alone in my living room. Outside, the December sun was setting. The neighbors had their Christmas lights up already, cheerful, normal. I thought about Jessica and Brian as children, thought about teaching them to ride bikes, to swim, to tie their shoes, thought about all the nights I'd stayed up with sick kids, all the school plays and soccer games and parent-teacher conferences, all the love I'd poured into raising them, and now they were counting down the months until they could take my home. I picked up my phone, found the text Margaret had sent me with the lawyer's information. Robert Klein, elder law attorney. I stared at it for a long moment. Then I hit call. Robert Klein's office was downtown, in one of those old buildings with marble floors and brass fixtures. I sat in the waiting room, hands folded in my lap, feeling like I was about to betray my own family, which was ridiculous. They were the ones planning to steal from me. Robert was in his late 50s, gray hair, kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. He shook my hand, offered me coffee, and sat across from his desk with a yellow legal pad. "Margaret Chen referred you," he said. "She told me a little bit. Why don't you start from the beginning?" I told him everything. Thanksgiving. The overheard conversation, the email, the gaslighting phone call. He took notes, didn't interrupt. When I finished, he set down his pen. "What they're planning is elder financial abuse," he said. "It's prosecutable in Colorado, but we need documentation, evidence. Can you access any of their communications? Emails, texts, anything in writing? I saw the one email, I said, on my daughter's iPad, but I don't have a copy. Can you get one? I thought about that, about going back to Jessica's house, looking for opportunities to access her devices. It felt invasive, wrong, but so was planning to steal my home. I can try, I said. Robert nodded. In the meantime, I want you to document everything, every conversation, every text message they send, times, dates, what was said. Keep a journal, and I want you to get a cognitive evaluation. Your doctor can administer one. We need proof that you're mentally competent, so if they try to file for guardianship, we have current medical documentation. I'd already scheduled the appointment with Dr. Morrison. I told him that. Good, he said. Bring me a copy of the results. And Dorothy, he leaned forward. This is going to get harder before it gets easier. They're going to escalate when they realize you're not cooperating. Be prepared for that. I drove home with my mind spinning. Document everything. Get proof. Prepare for escalation. That night, I couldn't sleep. I got up at 2 a.m, made coffee, and sat at my kitchen table with my laptop. I pulled up my bank statements, the joint account I'd opened with Jessica 3 years ago. I'd added her name in 2021. Just for emergencies, she'd said, in case something happens to you, so I can help manage things. I'd thought it was sensible, practical. Now I looked at the transactions. There, November 2023, withdrawal, $1,500. Memo, cabin maintenance, roof repair. I'd been at the cabin in December that year. The roof was fine. January 2024, withdrawal, $2,000. Memo, cabin maintenance, plumbing. I'd used the cabin's plumbing in February. No issues. March, $2,500. Cabin maintenance, deck resurfacing. April, $3,000. Cabin maintenance, septic system. May, $2,000. June, $1,500. On and on, every month or every other month. Withdrawals, ranging from $1,500 to $3,000, all labeled cabin maintenance. None of it real. I added it up. My hands were shaking. Over the past year, just the past 12 months, Jessica had withdrawn $14,800 from our joint account. Money I'd earned, money I'd saved, gone. I sat there as the sun came up, the kitchen filled with light. The window over the sink showed my reflection, 68 years old, gray hair, lines around my eyes. I'd taught 3rd grade for 35 years, helped hundreds of children learn to read, to add, to write their names. I'd been a good teacher, patient, kind. I'd been a good wife, a good mother, and my daughter had been stealing from me for a year. I sat there as the sun came through the kitchen window, warming the papers spread across my table. 43 years I'd been a mother. 43 years of scraped knees and science projects and midnight fevers. I thought I'd done right by them, taught them honesty, respect, gratitude. But these numbers, $14,800 withdrawn without asking, these numbers told a different story. And I realized I didn't know my daughter anymore. Maybe I never had. Maybe I'd been so busy being the mom she wanted that I'd never seen who she really was. Or maybe this was who I'd raised, someone who saw her mother as a resource, as an obstacle, as something to be managed. I printed the statements, highlighted every fraudulent withdrawal, put them in a folder. But that wasn't all I found. The next week, I drove to Jessica's house again. She'd asked me to watch the girls while she went to a dentist appointment. I said yes. Of course I said yes. While Maya and Sophia did homework in the living room, I looked through Jessica's home office. I felt sick doing it, like a spy, like a bad mother, but I needed evidence. In her filing cabinet, tucked in a folder labeled Legal Personal, I found it, a draft power of attorney document, already filled out, my name as the principal, Jessica's name as the attorney in fact, authority over all my financial and medical decisions. All it needed was my signature and a notary stamp. I took a photo with my phone. My hands were shaking so hard I had to try 3 times to get it in focus. Behind that, I found email printouts, correspondence between Jessica and an elder law attorney, not Robert, someone else. Someone giving her advice on how to pursue guardianship, how to document incompetence, how to petition the court. One email stood out, from the attorney to Jessica. Keep detailed notes of any concerning behaviors, memory lapses, confusion, difficulty with basic tasks. Video documentation is helpful if possible. Once you have 3 to 6 months of documented decline, we can file. The court will appoint an evaluator. If the evaluation supports your claims, you'll be granted legal authority over her affairs. I photographed every page. Sophia called from the living room. Grandma, can you help me with my math? I closed the filing cabinet, went to help my granddaughter with fractions. When Jessica came home, I hugged her goodbye, smiled, told her I was happy to help anytime. Then I drove home and sent everything to Robert Klein. His reply came an hour later. This is exactly what we needed. Document tampering, financial exploitation, conspiracy to commit fraud. Dorothy, you have a very strong case. Let's meet tomorrow. I kept digging. Over the next 2 weeks, I became someone I didn't recognize, someone who investigated her own children. I went through the old phone Jessica had given me last year when she upgraded. Here, Mom, use mine. It's better than yours. I'd switched my number over, started using it, but I'd kept the old one in a drawer, charged it up, logged into her old iCloud account. She'd never changed the password. Text messages, hundreds of them, between Jessica and Brian. Jessica. Mom's getting more forgetful. I asked her about Dad's birthday and she couldn't remember the year. Document that. Brian. Are you sure? She seemed fine at Thanksgiving. Jessica. Brian, we need this to work. The cabin's worth $850K. Your house payment is 3 months overdue. Do you want to lose everything? Brian. No. Jessica. Then help me. Every time you talk to her, ask her memory questions, date questions, see if she stumbles. And more. So much more. Jessica. I scheduled a wellness check with Dr. Morrison for Mom. Told the office I'm concerned about cognitive decline. If Morrison raises any flags, we can use that. Brian. What if she passes the evaluation? Jessica. She won't. I'll make sure there are concerns documented. We just need enough to petition the court. Brian. This feels wrong. Jessica. It's practical. She's going to need care eventually anyway. We're just accelerating the timeline. Think of it as protecting her from herself. I forwarded screenshots to Robert, to my email, backed everything up to a thumb drive. The evidence kept mounting. I discovered Brian, a real estate agent, had commissioned property appraisals on the cabin 3 times in the past 6 months. Current market value, $850,000. He'd pulled comps, analyzed the market, treated my family cabin like inventory. I got my cognitive evaluation from Dr. Morrison, passed with flying colors. She said I was healthy, sharp, fully capable of independent living. She gave me a written statement. I filed it with Robert. My financial advisor, Tom Vickers, provided a letter confirming I managed my own accounts, understood my investments, made sound financial decisions. No signs of cognitive impairment. No need for outside management. Margaret gave a sworn statement as my neighbor, testified that she'd observed me daily for 8 years. I maintained my home independently, drove safely, managed my own affairs, showed no signs of decline. 5 pieces of evidence, financial records showing theft, legal documents showing conspiracy, text messages showing premeditation, property records showing they'd already planned the sale, professional testimony showing I was competent. I had everything I needed, but I made one mistake. In early December, I was on the phone with Jessica. She was asking about Christmas plans, whether I wanted to host at my house or come to hers. I was distracted, thinking about the evidence folder sitting on my desk. I've been organizing some paperwork, I said, not thinking. Financial stuff, legal documents, getting things in order. Silence on the other end of the line. Then, "What kind of documents?" I caught myself. Too late. "Just estate planning, making sure everything's updated." "Have you talked to anyone? A lawyer?" "No," I lied. "Just organizing on my own." Another silence. "Okay. Well, let me know if you need help with any of that." After I hung up, I knew I'd made an error. I'd tipped my hand. Let her know I was paying attention to paperwork, to legal things. That night, Brian called. Casual. Friendly. "Hey, Mom, Jessica mentioned you're doing some estate planning." "Just organizing files," I said. "Do you need help? I know a good attorney if you need one." "I'm fine." "Okay, just if you're making changes to anything, wills, deeds, accounts, maybe run it by us first. We just want to make sure you're protected." Protected. That word again. I assured him I would, hung up, sat in my dark living room. They knew I was onto something, and now they'd be more careful. But I had the evidence. Bank statements, emails, texts, professional testimony, everything documented, everything backed up. I looked at the folder on my coffee table. Proof of what my children had become. Proof of what they'd planned to do to me. And I knew evidence alone wouldn't stop them. I needed a plan. I needed to act. Because if I waited, if I hesitated, they'd find a way to move first. 2 days after I tipped my hand on that phone call with Jessica, my phone rang. Sarah, Brian's wife. "Dorothy, can we talk? Just you and me?" We met at a coffee shop on Main Street. Neutral ground. Sarah was already there when I arrived, sitting in a corner booth, hands wrapped around a coffee cup. She looked tired, thinner than I remembered. "Thank you for meeting me," she said. I sat down, ordered tea, waited. Sarah twisted her wedding ring, a nervous habit I'd noticed over the years. "I need to tell you something. About Brian, about all of this." "Okay." She took a breath. "Brian has a gambling problem, sports betting, online poker. It started 3 years ago after he lost a big commission. He thought he could win it back. Instead, he kept losing. He's $120,000 in debt. We're 3 months behind on our mortgage. The bank sent foreclosure notices in October." I felt something shift in my chest. Not surprise, exactly. I'd suspected Brian was in financial trouble, but hearing the numbers, hearing it from Sarah. "Does Jessica know?" I asked. She's the one who approached him back in September, told him there was a way to solve both their problems, the cabin. If they could get control of it. Sarah's voice broke. "I told him it was wrong. I told him you'd never do anything like this to us. But he was desperate. And Jessica, she's very convincing. Why are you telling me this now?" Sarah looked at me. Her eyes were red. Because I can't be part of it anymore. I can't watch my husband plot to steal from his mother. I can't participate in this. I have 2 boys. What am I teaching them if I let this happen? I reached across the table, took her hand. She started crying. "I'm sorry," she said. "I should have told you sooner. I should have stopped him. I just kept hoping he'd come to his senses, that Jessica would back off. But it's gotten worse. They talk every day now, coordinating, making plans. And Dorothy," she looked up at me. "They know you're onto something. Jessica thinks you hired a lawyer. She's trying to move faster." My stomach went cold. Move faster how? "She wants to file for emergency guardianship, claim you're a danger to yourself, that you're showing signs of dementia. She has a doctor friend who'll testify. She thinks if she moves fast enough before you can defend yourself, the court will grant temporary authority. Then it's just a matter of time before she gets permanent control." I sat back, processing. Sarah wiped her eyes. "I'm leaving him. Brian. I can't do this anymore. I'm filing for divorce. I wanted you to know, and I wanted you to know that if you need me to testify to anything about what they've been planning, about the conversations I've overheard, I will. I'll do it, because this isn't right. None of this is right." After Sarah left, I sat in that coffee shop for another hour, thinking, planning. Then I got in my car and drove to the cabin. It was early December. The mountain. Roads were dusted with snow. The aspen trees were bare, skeletal against the gray sky. The evergreens were heavy with white. I drove slowly, carefully. 3 hours from my suburban house to this place my father had built 60 years ago. I unlocked the door. The cabin was cold, silent. I turned on the heat, heard the old furnace kick in with its familiar rumble. Then I walked through the rooms. The living room with its stone fireplace. My father had laid every stone himself, chosen each one from the creek bed below. I touched the mantel. Rough wood, warm under my fingers despite the cold. The kitchen with the oak table my grandfather had made. Hand-planed, dovetail joints, built to last generations. I ran my hand across the surface, smooth from years of family meals. The guest book was still on the mantel where it had always been. I took it down, opened it. The first entry was from July 1965, my father's handwriting. First summer in our cabin. Betty and I brought the kids. Dorothy caught her first fish today. She's 7 years old and so proud. I turned the pages. Summers and winters. Thanksgivings and Christmases. Decades of memories in fading ink. 1995. Jessica's handwriting, 11 years old, careful and round. I caught a fish. Dad helped me. It was so big. Best day ever. Brian's entry right below it, 9 years old, messy scrawl. Mom taught me to swim today. I went off the dock by myself. She said she was proud of me. I remembered that day, that summer. Jessica had been so excited about the fish. Brian had been terrified of swimming, but I'd stayed in the water with him for hours, patient, encouraging, until he'd finally let go and paddled on his own. Tom had grilled burgers. We'd eaten on the deck as the sun set over the lake. The kids had been happy. We'd been a family. When had that changed? When had they stopped seeing this place as our family cabin and started seeing it as an asset? As their inheritance? As something they were owed? Or maybe they'd always seen it that way. Maybe I just refused to notice. I closed the guest book, set it back on the mantel. In 2019, Tom had been dying. Heart attack, sudden and massive. He'd lasted 3 days in the hospital. On the last day, when we both knew he wasn't going to make it, he'd held my hand. "Promise me something," he'd said, his voice weak, raspy, anything. "Keep the cabin in the family. Don't sell it. Don't let it go. Your dad built that place with his own hands. It's our legacy. It's what we leave them." I'd promised. Of course I'd promised. "The family," Tom had said. "It's what matters. Take care of them, Dorothy." And I had. I'd taken care of them, given them everything, sacrificed my retirement savings, my peace of mind, my independence. Because that's what mothers do. That's what I'd been taught. Put your children first. Always. But Tom had also said something else that day. I'd forgotten it until now. He'd looked at me with those tired eyes and said, "You're stronger than you think, Dorothy. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Not even them." I stood in the cabin kitchen, the same kitchen where I'd made hot chocolate for cold kids after days in the snow, where I'd taught them to crack eggs and measure flour, where Tom and I had sat at 2 a.m. during family vacations, talking quietly while everyone else slept. I made coffee, sat at the grandfather's table, looked out the window at the snow falling soft and steady. Jessica had a gambling problem. No, Brian had a gambling problem. Jessica had a control problem, a money problem, an entitlement problem. She'd always been my father's favorite, then Tom's favorite. She'd grown up believing the world owed her things, that she deserved more than what she'd earned, and I'd enabled it. Every time I'd given her money, bailed her out, smoothed over her problems. Every time I'd said yes when I should have said no. Every time I'd chosen peace over boundaries. I'd raised this. I'd created children who saw their mother as a resource to be exploited. But Tom was right. I was stronger than I thought. And the family, the people who deserved this cabin, who deserved my father's legacy, weren't the people trying to steal it from me. The real family was the one I could choose, the one I could protect. I pulled out my phone, called a number I'd found online. High Country Real Estate. This is Michael. Yes, hello, I have a property I'd like to list for sale. A cabin, mountain location, $850,000 value. I gave him the address, the details. We scheduled an appraisal and photography for the following week. When I hung up, I sat in the quiet. Snow falling outside, the cabin settling around me with its familiar creaks. I thought about Jessica and Brian, about the grandkids, about all the Thanksgivings and Christmases that would never happen here again. I thought about my father building this place board by board, about Tom asking me to keep it in the family, and I thought, the family is the people who cherish what you give them, not the people who scheme to take it. I sat there in the quiet cabin, snow falling outside the windows, 43 years of motherhood, and I realized I didn't recognize these people anymore. The children I'd raised, or thought I'd raised, wouldn't do this. These were strangers wearing my children's faces, but I recognized myself. For the first time in a long time, I knew exactly who I was, and I knew what I had to do. I finished my coffee, locked up the cabin, drove home. The listing went live 3 days later. Professional photos, virtual tour, market analysis, $850,000. Family cabin, pristine condition, lake access, mountain views. I didn't tell Jessica or Brian a word. The cabin listing went live on a Tuesday. By Friday, I had an offer, full asking price. Cash buyers, Michael and Amy Johnson, a young couple with 2 small kids. They wanted to make family memories there. I accepted that night. Closing date, late February, 8 weeks away. I met with Robert Klein again, bringing everything. The evidence folder, bank statements, photos of Jessica's documents, text message screenshots, Sarah's sworn statement, Dr. Morrison's cognitive evaluation, letters from Tom Vickers and Margaret. Robert spread it across his conference table. "This is airtight," he said. "Financial exploitation, conspiracy to commit fraud. If they file for emergency guardianship, we don't just defend, we can prosecute." I don't want to prosecute my children. He looked at me over his glasses. Direct confrontation gives them time to adjust their strategy. Right now, you have the element of surprise. They don't know about the cabin listing. They don't know you have this evidence. Don't give that up. I nodded, but part of me, the mother, the peacekeeper, still wanted to believe there was a way to fix this without destroying what was left of my family. So I tried. I called Jessica, asked her to lunch, just the 2 of us. We met at a quiet restaurant, white tablecloths. She was scrolling through her phone when I arrived, smiled, hugged me. "You look good, Mom." After we ordered, I took a breath. "Jessica, I wanted to talk about Thanksgiving, about the comment." "Mom," she sighed, set down her fork. "I told you, I was joking." "And the conversation about assisted living. We're concerned. You're alone, getting older. We want you safe." She reached across, patted my hand. "You've been different lately, forgetting things." "I'm not confused. You called me Karen last week on the phone." I stared at her. I hadn't. But she said it so confidently that for a split second, I doubted myself. Then I remembered, this is gaslighting. "I didn't call you Karen," I said, firm. Her expression changed. Colder. "This is exactly what I'm talking about. You're getting defensive, denying things. That's cognitive decline, Mom." She leaned forward. "I'm worried about the cabin. You driving up there alone. 3 hours on mountain roads. Maybe it's time to let Brian and me help with these decisions." There it was. The cabin. I wanted to put the evidence on the table right there, but Robert's voice, "Don't give up the element of surprise." "I'll think about it," I said. Jessica smiled, relieved. "That's all I'm asking." I paid for lunch, drove home, sat in my driveway shaking. That was my first false resolution, the hope that talking would work. It didn't. If anything, it made things worse. Now she thought I was cooperating. 2 days later, Brian called. Jessica said you guys had lunch, that you're open to care options? I didn't say that. She said you were thinking about it. Listen, Sarah and I are having marriage problems. Our therapist suggested family therapy, getting you involved, to understand family dynamics. I knew what this was. Another trap. Get me in a room where they could paint me as confused, problematic. That's not appropriate, I said. Your marriage is between you and Sarah. Family therapy helps with generational patterns. Just a few sessions. No, Brian. After I hung up, I felt something shift. That was the second false resolution. The hope that Brian would be different. He wasn't. He was complicit. There was no way through this that didn't involve legal action. The following Monday, I was pruning roses when Jessica's SUV pulled into my driveway. She got out, waved. Hey, Mom, I was in the neighborhood. Can I use your bathroom? She'd never stopped by without calling. Sure, I said. Inside, she disappeared down the hall. I washed my hands in the kitchen, heard her moving around, too long for just the bathroom. When I walked into the living room, she was by my desk. My filing cabinet was open. Jessica, what are you doing? She jumped. Oh, looking for a phone charger. I thought... The cabinet was closed, and the charger's by the couch. She smiled, smooth, easy. Sorry, Mom, I saw it open, thought you'd been organizing. You mentioned that. I wanted to see if you needed help. The cabinet hadn't been open. I'd like you to leave, I said. Her expression flickered. Surprised. Mom, are you okay? You seem upset. I'm fine. I have things to do. She paused at the door. By the way, do you still have my spare key? The one I gave you for emergencies? I didn't remember her giving me one, which meant she'd made a copy. I'll look for it, I said. After she left, I called Margaret, told her everything. She has a key to your house? Margaret was furious. Change the locks, today, and tell your lawyer. That afternoon, a locksmith came. New deadbolts, new keys. I kept one, gave one to Margaret. The next day, Dr. Morrison's office called. Mrs. Thompson, your daughter scheduled a wellness check for you. Next week. She said she's concerned about memory issues? My stomach dropped. I didn't request that. No, your daughter did. Cancel it. And please note in my file that I don't authorize my daughter to make medical appointments for me. I forwarded the information to Robert immediately. He replied, This is attempted fraud. Document everything. That night was book club. When I arrived at the library, Mrs. Chen, Linda, a retired family law attorney, pulled me aside. Margaret had told her what was happening. I've seen cases like this, Linda said. Adult children exploiting elderly parents. It's heartbreaking, but you're doing the right thing, protecting yourself legally. The other women gathered, offered support. One woman's nephew had tried something similar. Another's daughter had drained her savings. Over the next week, they brought casseroles, checked on me daily, offered to be witnesses if needed. It was the kind of support I'd imagined family would provide. But it came from my book club, my neighbor, my chosen community, not my children. By mid-December, the situation had crystallized. Jessica and Brian were escalating, scheduling appointments behind my back, trying to access my house, building a false narrative. And I had a cabin sale closing in 8 weeks, a file of evidence, a lawyer ready to defend me, a community ready to support me. I called Robert one more time. I think they're going to try something soon. Before the cabin closes, what do I do? We prepare for confrontation. I'll draft a cease and desist letter. When they make their move, and they will, we'll be ready. You have everything you need, Dorothy, evidence, medical clearance, legal representation. Then why am I so scared? Because they're your children, he said quietly. But Dorothy, they stopped treating you like their mother a long time ago. Remember that. I hung up, sat in my quiet house. December darkness outside, Christmas lights in the neighborhood, cheerful, normal. In 8 weeks, the cabin would belong to the Johnsons. In 8 weeks, my children would know I outsmarted them. In 8 weeks, everything would change. I just had to survive until then. The meeting was scheduled for the first week of February. Robert's idea. Neutral ground, professional setting, a chance to discuss estate planning, he told Jessica and Brian when he called them. No mention of confrontation, no hint of what was coming. I arrived early. Robert's conference room had a long table, leather chairs, windows overlooking downtown Denver. He'd already laid out the documents, everything organized in clear folders, bank statements, emails, text messages, the draft power of attorney Jessica had hidden in her office, the cabin deed, and one page from the guest book, a photocopy I'd made. Jessica and Brian's entries from 1995, their childhood handwriting, innocent and hopeful. "Are you ready for this?" Robert asked. I looked at the evidence spread across the table. Proof of what my children had become. "No," I said, "but let's do it anyway." Jessica arrived first, alone. She was dressed professionally, blazer, slacks, her work persona. She looked surprised to see Robert, but recovered quickly, extended her hand. "You must be the attorney my mother hired. I'm Jessica Martinez." "Robert Klein, please, have a seat." She sat across from me, smiled. "Hi, Mom. This is good. I'm glad you're getting professional advice about estate planning. That's really responsible." I didn't respond. Brian came 5 minutes later with Sarah. That surprised me. I'd expected him to come alone. Sarah looked uncomfortable, wouldn't quite meet anyone's eyes. Brian kissed my cheek. "Hey, Mom. Good to see you." They sat. Robert closed the door, returned to his seat at the head of the table. "Thank you all for coming," he said. "Mrs. Thompson asked me to facilitate this meeting. There are some matters regarding her property and finances that need to be addressed." Jessica leaned forward, engaged, helpful. "Of course. We've been worried about Mom. She's been having some memory issues, confusion. We think it might be time to talk about power of attorney for her protection." "Actually," Robert said, "we're here to talk about your actions, not your mother's competence." Jessica's smile faltered. "I'm sorry?" Robert opened the first folder, slid copies across the table. Bank statements, the joint account, highlighted withdrawals. "Over the past year, you've withdrawn $14,800 from your mother's account, all labeled cabin maintenance, none of which was legitimate." Jessica's face went pale. Those were... Mom authorized those." "Did you authorize these withdrawals, Mrs. Thompson?" Robert asked. "No," I said, quiet but clear. "I didn't." "Mom, you're confused. We talked about this. You said I could use the account for cabin expenses." "I never said that," I said, "and there were no cabin expenses. I checked. The roof is fine. The plumbing works. The deck doesn't need resurfacing. You lied about all of it." Brian shifted in his seat. "Mom, maybe you just don't remember." "She remembers perfectly," Robert said. He slid another folder across. "Mrs. Thompson recently underwent a comprehensive cognitive evaluation. Dr. Patricia Morrison, her physician of 12 years, confirms she's in excellent mental health, sharp, fully competent, no signs of dementia or cognitive decline whatsoever." He handed them the letter. I watched Jessica read it. Her jaw tightened. "Beyond the financial theft," Robert continued, "we have evidence of conspiracy to commit fraud." He opened another folder. The photos I'd taken, the draft power of attorney, the emails from Jessica's attorney, the text messages. Jessica stared at the documents, then looked up at me. "You went through my things. You broke into my house. You left your iPad unlocked while I was babysitting," I said, "and you gave me a key to your house years ago, remember?" Brian leaned over, reading the texts. His face crumpled. "Jessica, what is this? You told me we were just planning ahead, that Mom needed help. This," he pointed at the emails, "this is talking about filing for guardianship, about documenting incompetence, about..." He looked at me. "Mom, I didn't know she was doing this." "Yes, you did," Sarah said, quiet, firm. She'd been silent until now. "You knew exactly what she was doing. You participated. You asked Mom memory questions, trying to trip her up. You called me after every conversation to report if she'd seemed confused. You did this, Brian." Brian's face went red. He looked down. "Mrs. Thompson also has sworn testimony," Robert said. He slid another document across. "From her financial advisor, Thomas Vickers, confirming she manages her own investments competently. From her neighbor, Margaret Chen, who's observed her daily for 8 years, all testifying to her independence and mental acuity." He paused. "Let it sink in. What you've done, both of you, constitutes elder financial abuse under Colorado law. It's prosecutable. Mrs. Thompson could press charges. She could have you arrested. Instead, she's offering you an opportunity to resolve this here, today, privately." Jessica's hands were shaking. "This is insane. We were trying to help. Mom's alone. She's getting older. The cabin's too much for her. We were being practical." "You were planning to steal my home," I said. My voice didn't shake. "I'd practice this. I heard you, Thanksgiving night, at the cabin, through the heating vents. You said I wouldn't last long in assisted living, that you'd have the cabin within a year. That splitting, it would solve both your problems." Jessica went very still. Brian made a sound, almost a sob. "Mom, You have a gambling problem," I said. I looked at him, at my son. $120,000 in debt, your house in foreclosure. Sarah told me. I know you were desperate, but Brian, you don't steal from your mother." "I'm sorry," he said. His voice broke. "I'm so sorry, I didn't know what else to do. Jessica said, she said it was the only way, that we'd take care of you, that it was for the best." "It wasn't for the best," I said. "It was for you." There was silence, heavy, terrible. Then Jessica spoke, her voice cold, controlled. "Fine. You caught us. You're very clever, Mom. So what do you want? An apology? You want us to say we're sorry?" "Fine, I'm sorry. Brian's sorry. Now what? You called us here to humiliate us? To threaten us with lawyers and prosecution? What's your endgame?" I reached into my purse, pulled out a document, slid it across the table. "This is a sales contract for the cabin. I accepted an offer in December. It closes next week." Jessica grabbed the paper, read it. Her face went white, then red. "You sold it. You sold the cabin." "Yes. That was our inheritance. That was, Dad said he made you promise to keep it in the family." "I am keeping it in the family," I said, calm, even. "I'm keeping it away from people who see it as money. The Johnsons, the family who bought it, they have 2 small children. They want to make memories there. They'll cherish it. The way your father and I did. The way I thought you did." I pointed to the guestbook page, the photocopy sitting on the table. "You caught a fish. You learned to swim. You had the best day ever, remember? That cabin was your childhood, your happiness. When did it stop being that and start being $850,000? Jessica stared at the page, her eyes filled with tears. "The sale closes next Tuesday," I said. "The money goes into an irrevocable trust. I can't touch it. You can't touch it. It's managed by a professional trustee. The income supports me. After I die, whatever's left funds college for Maya, Sophia, Jake, and Ethan. Your children, not you. They'll get it when they turn 25, old enough to use it wisely." "You're cutting us out," Jessica whispered. "I'm protecting myself, and I'm protecting your children from what you've become." Brian was crying now, full sobs. Sarah had her hand on his shoulder, but she was looking at me, steady, supporting me, not him. "Additionally," Robert said, "you will repay the $14,800 you stole. Full amount. I've drafted a payment plan. 12 months, documented legally. If you miss a payment, Mrs. Thompson will file charges. Is that understood?" Jessica didn't answer, just sat there, tears running down her face. Brian nodded. "Understood." "There's one more thing," I said. I pulled out another document, a no-contact agreement. "For the next year, you don't call me. You don't come to my house. You don't schedule medical appointments for me. You don't contact my doctors or my financial advisors. You leave me alone. You're our mother, Jessica said, her voice raw, broken. You can't cut us off completely. I'm not cutting you off. I'm setting boundaries. After a year, if you've made every payment, if you've respected these terms, we can talk about rebuilding trust. But not before. I need time, and I need space from people who tried to take everything from me. What about the kids? Brian asked, voice thick. Our kids. Your grandchildren. You're punishing them too? I softened slightly, just slightly. Sarah can bring the boys to visit, if she's comfortable with that, under supervision, not at my house, somewhere neutral. I'm not cutting off my grandchildren, but I'm not giving you access to me anymore. Sarah nodded. I can do that. Jessica looked at Sarah, then at Brian, then at me. Her face twisted, anger and grief and something else. Shame, maybe. You know what the worst part is? Jessica said. Quiet. I convinced myself we were helping you, that you needed us, that we were being good children by planning ahead, by being practical. I actually believed that. Did you? I asked. Or did you just tell yourself that so you could sleep at night? She didn't answer. Robert gathered the documents. I need signatures on the repayment agreement and the no-contact order, today, before you leave. He slid papers across. Jessica signed first, her hand shaking, then Brian. Sarah witnessed. When it was done, they stood to leave. Brian hugged me. I let him. He whispered, I'm so sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry. Jessica didn't hug me, just looked at me for a long moment. I hope you're happy with your choice. I'm not happy, I said, but I'm safe, and right now that's more important. They left. Sarah gave me a small nod as she walked out. A promise. I'll bring the boys. I'll keep that connection. Then it was just me and Robert in the conference room, the documents still spread across the table, the evidence of betrayal, the proof of what I'd done to protect myself. When Robert had finished laying out everything, shown them every piece of evidence, every text and email and bank statement, I didn't feel triumphant, just tired, relieved, but mostly tired. Like I'd been holding my breath for months and finally let it out. This wasn't victory, it was survival. You did well, Robert said. That took courage. It took desperation, I said. I just wanted my family back. You have a family. Margaret, Sarah, your book club, the people who showed up for you. I nodded. He was right. But it still hurt. I gathered my purse, stood, looked at the guest book page one more time. That summer, those kids, that happiness. It was gone, all of it, gone. But I was still here, still standing, still independent, still mine, and that would have to be enough. The cabin sale closed on February 25th. I signed the papers in a title company office. The Johnsons were there, Michael and Amy, their 2 kids coloring at a side table. Michael shook my hand. We'll take good care of it, he said. Thank you for this. I nodded, couldn't quite speak, just handed over the keys. That night, alone in my house, I cried, not because I regretted it, but because it was over. That chapter of my life, 60 years of family summers, of Thanksgivings at the lake, of my father's legacy, gone. Sold to strangers who would make their own memories there. But it was safe now, protected. That had to be enough. The trust was established by mid-March. Robert handled everything. An irrevocable trust, professionally managed. The cabin proceeds, $850,000, invested conservatively. The income came to me monthly, enough to supplement my pension comfortably. After I died, whatever remained would be divided equally among my 4 grandchildren when they turned 25. Not a penny would go to Jessica or Brian. Jessica and Brian made their first repayment in March, $1,200, on time. Every month after that, another payment appeared in my account. 12 payments over the year. Not once did they miss. Not once did they try to contact me. The consequences settled in slowly. By April, Brian and Sarah's divorce was finalized. Sarah got the house, barely saved from foreclosure with help from her parents. She got primary custody of the boys. Brian got supervised visitation and a payment plan for his gambling debts that would take him years to clear. Sarah called me in May. "I wanted you to know. I'm keeping my promise. The boys ask about you. I told them Grandma needed some space, but we'd see you soon. Is that okay?" "Yes," I said. "That's okay." We met at a park the following Saturday. Neutral ground. Jake and Ethan ran to me, hugged me tight. They were 10 and 8 now, growing so fast. We spent 2 hours at the playground. Sarah kept her distance, gave us space, but stayed close enough to supervise. When it was time to go, Jake asked, "Can we see you again, Grandma?" "Yes, sweetie, we can see each other again." Sarah and I worked out a schedule. Every other Saturday. Sometimes the park, sometimes the zoo, once the Natural History Museum. The boys were happy. That mattered. Sarah was building her own life, teaching full-time, dating someone new by summer. She never asked me about Jessica or Brian, just focused on her kids and moving forward. I respected that. Jessica didn't call, didn't write. I heard through Sarah that she'd sold her house in June, downsized to a townhouse. Maya had gotten into a good state school, Colorado State, with scholarships and the college fund I'd set up years ago. Sophia was doing well. Jessica had found a new job, marketing director at a smaller firm. Less money, but stable. I didn't reach out. Neither did she. In July, a letter arrived, handwritten. Jessica's neat, careful script on the envelope. I almost didn't open it. Sat at my kitchen table for 10 minutes, just holding it. Then I opened it. "Dear Mom, I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't even know if I can forgive myself. But I wanted you to know I understand now what I did. What we did. It wasn't about helping you. It was about helping ourselves. And I convinced myself that was the same thing. It wasn't. I've been seeing a therapist, working through a lot. Understanding how I became someone who could justify stealing from her own mother. How I could twist family into something so ugly. I'm not making excuses, just trying to understand. The girls ask about you. I tell them you're doing well, that you needed space. I don't tell them the whole truth. Maybe someday I will, but not yet. They're not ready. Maybe I'm not ready. I made the payments, all of them, on time. I'll keep making them. It's the least I can do. And when the year is up, if you're willing, I'd like to talk. Just talk. No expectations, no demands. Just maybe a beginning. I'm sorry doesn't cover it, but I am. I'm so sorry. Jessica. I read it twice. Then I pulled out my journal, the one I'd been keeping since December, documenting everything, and I wrote a response. Not to send, just for myself. Jessica, I read your letter. I appreciate the apology. I do. But an apology doesn't undo what you did. It doesn't give me back the year I spent afraid of my own children. It doesn't erase the fact that you were willing to take everything from me. I hope your therapy helps. I hope you become someone who wouldn't do this again. But I can't be part of that process. Not yet. Maybe not ever. That's my boundary. And I'm learning that boundaries are okay, even with family. Especially with family. I'm rebuilding. My life is mine again. Small, quiet, but mine. And that matters more than you know. I don't hate you, but I don't trust you either. And trust isn't something you can apologize your way back into. It's something you earn over years through actions, not words. Maybe in time. Maybe. Mom, I didn't send it, but writing it helped, clarified things. I folded the letter, put it in a drawer, and moved on with my day. Margaret stopped by that afternoon with iced tea. We sat in my garden. The roses were blooming, deep red and coral pink. I'd spent the spring nurturing them, pruning, fertilizing. They'd never looked better. "You seem lighter," Margaret said. "I feel lighter," I admitted. "Tired, but lighter." She smiled. My sister says hello, by the way. She wanted me to thank you. Thank me? For giving her hope. She spent years feeling ashamed that her son stole from her, ashamed that she had to take legal action against her own child. Hearing your story, knowing she wasn't alone, it helped her. I hadn't thought about that, about the ripple effects, about other people in my situation who might feel less alone because I'd stood up for myself. I'm glad, I said, quietly. Margaret raised her glass, to boundaries and roses and second chances at peace. We clinked glasses, sat in the garden as the afternoon sun warmed the flowers. Robert Klein called in August. The trust is performing well. You're set for life, Dorothy, and your grandchildren will have a solid foundation when they're older. You did good. Thank you for everything, I said. I couldn't have done this without you. You did the hard part. I just handled the paperwork. My book club rallied around me all year. Linda Chen brought legal articles about elder rights. The others brought casseroles, company, conversation. In September, we read a novel about family estrangement. The discussion got personal. 3 of the 6 women had similar stories, children who'd disappointed them, relationships that had fractured. We talked for hours, cried a little, laughed too, found solidarity in shared pain. We're your family now, one of them said, the family you choose. And they were. Margaret next door, Sarah and the boys every other Saturday, Robert checking in monthly, the book club every Thursday night, my chosen community, not the family I'd been born into or raised, but the one I'd built in the aftermath. In late October, I got another letter, this time from the Johnsons, a card with a photo tucked inside, their kids on the dock at the cabin, Emma, 7 years old, holding a fish, Noah, 5, grinning at the camera, the lake sparkling behind them. Dear Mrs. Thompson, we wanted you to know how much this place means to us. Emma caught her first fish last weekend. Noah learned to skip stones. We've started a new guest book. We read the old one, all those years of your family's memories, and we're honored to add our own. Thank you for trusting us with this legacy. We'll cherish it. The Johnson family. I put the photo on my refrigerator, looked at it every morning while I made coffee. Those kids, that joy, that cabin being loved again, it helped. By November, I'd found a rhythm. Tuesdays, I tutored at the library. Thursdays, book club. Saturdays with the boys, alternating weeks. Sundays, gardening or reading or just sitting quietly with my coffee. My life was smaller now, but it was mine. Completely mine. And there was freedom in that. The trust was secure. The grandchildren protected. My independence intact. The people who'd tried to take it all were gone from my daily life. And the people who'd stood by me, Margaret, Sarah, Robert, the book club, they were closer than ever. Thanksgiving was coming. 1 year since that dinner at the cabin. 1 year since, you're lucky we still let you stay. This year, I'd be hosting. At my house. Not the cabin. Margaret was coming. Sarah and the boys. A few women from book club. A small gathering. Chosen family. People who saw me as a person, not an asset. I was planning the menu. Turkey. Mashed potatoes. Green bean casserole. My mother's stuffing recipe. The same meal I'd made for 40 years. But this time. I'd serve it in my own home, to people who wanted to be there, who chose to be there, and that, finally, felt like something worth being grateful for. Thanksgiving 2025, 1 year to the day since Jessica said I was lucky to stay in my own cabin. This year, the table was set in my dining room, the one Tom and I had bought 30 years ago, scarred from decades of family dinners. 8 place settings. Margaret and her daughter visiting from California, Sarah and the boys, Linda Chen from book club, 2 other women from my Thursday group, and me. We went around the table saying what we were grateful for. When it got to me, I looked at the faces gathered there, people who'd chosen to be here, who saw me as Dorothy, not as an asset or an obstacle or a problem to be managed. I'm grateful for this, I said. Simple, true. For all of you. For this table. for my independence. Jake, 9 now, piped up. I'm grateful Grandma has us over to the park and that she makes good cookies. Everyone laughed. The moment passed. We ate turkey and stuffing and mashed potatoes, the same recipes I'd been making for 43 years. But the people around the table were different, and somehow that made it better. After dinner, while the others were having coffee in the living room, Margaret found me in the kitchen washing dishes. You doing okay? She asked. Quiet. Yeah, I said, and I meant it. I miss what I thought I had, but I don't miss what it actually was. Does that make sense? Perfect sense. She dried a plate, set it in the rack. You know, I've been thinking. That advocacy group I told you about, the one that helps seniors with financial abuse cases, they're looking for volunteers, people who've been through it, who can speak to others going through it now. I paused, hands in the soapy water. You think I should? I think you'd be good at it. You don't have to decide now. Just think about it. I did think about it. Over the next few weeks, I called the organization, Elder Rights Coalition of Colorado. They trained volunteers to staff a helpline, to speak at senior centers, to share their stories so others knew they weren't alone. I started in January. Once a month, I spoke at a different senior center, told my story. Not all of it, just enough. The warning signs, the gaslighting, the evidence gathering, the legal protection, the boundaries. Every time, hands went up afterward. Questions, tears. That happened to me. My son did something similar. I thought I was crazy. You're not crazy, I told them, every time. And you deserve to protect yourself, even from family, especially from family. By spring, I was staffing the helpline twice a month, talking to people in crisis, giving them Robert Klein's name, telling them about cognitive evaluations and financial advisors and no contact agreements, telling them, you can survive this. I did. The estate was secure. The trust generated enough income that I'd increased my volunteer work, cut back on tutoring, spent more time in the garden. The roses were thriving. I'd planted new varieties that spring, yellows and whites, not just reds. They bloomed all summer. Sarah brought the boys every other Saturday, like clockwork. Sometimes we went to the park. Sometimes we stayed at my house, baked cookies, watched movies. Jake was obsessed with dinosaurs. Ethan loved art. I kept supplies for both. They never asked about their father. I never brought him up. In June, Sarah told me she'd gotten engaged to a teacher from her school, someone kind, someone stable. I wanted you to know, she said, before I told the boys. You've been more of a parent to me this year than anyone. I wanted you to hear it first. I'm happy for you, I said, and I was. Jessica's year of no contact ended in February. She didn't call, didn't write. In March, I heard through Sarah that she'd started dating someone, that she was still in therapy, that Maya was doing well at college, that Sophia had joined the debate team. I was glad they were okay, but I didn't reach out. Neither did she. Maybe someday. Maybe. But for now, my life was full enough without them. I still lived in my house, still tended my garden, still went to book club every Thursday. Margaret and I had coffee most mornings. The advocacy work gave me purpose. The grandkids gave me joy. My independence, hard-won, fiercely protected, gave me peace. Was it the life I'd imagined at 68? No, I'd imagined growing old surrounded by my children and grandchildren, big family Thanksgivings at the cabin, generational legacy intact. But that life had been built on a foundation of exploitation, of me giving and them taking, of me being a resource instead of a person. This life, smaller, quieter, chosen, was built on respect, on boundaries, on people who saw me as whole, as worthy, as more than what I could provide. And that made all the difference. I learned something through all of this. Family isn't who you're born to. It's who shows up, who respects you, who sees you as a person worthy of dignity and independence, not as an asset to be managed or a problem to be solved. If you're in a situation like mine, If your family is pressuring you, manipulating you, planning behind your back, know this: you are not alone. You are not crazy. And you have the right to protect yourself. Get a lawyer. Document everything. Trust your gut. Set boundaries, even if it breaks your heart, especially if it breaks your heart. I lost my children, but I kept myself. And some days, that has to be enough. Most days, it is. They said I was lucky to stay. Turned out they were right, just not the way they meant. I'm lucky to stay in my own life, on my own terms, in my own home, with people who actually want me here. And nobody gets to tell me otherwise anymore.